Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Have another special guest on for you guys. I'm bringing on some great folks onto the channel. I got my buddy here, Mr. Austin Taylor. Austin, how you doing today, brother?
Doing good, man. Hanging in there. Can't complain.
You ready to toss some ball?
Absolutely.
Let's,
Absolutely.
let's do it. Let's do it. Well, guys, Austin is very unique in the sense of there's not anyone better that I could bring on that understands the Oklahoma State Cowboys and the challenge that will be presented before our Texas Longhorns up in Stillwater this Saturday. But Austin also, follows the Texas Longhorns, grew up in a Longhorn family. I'm going to have him introduce himself here in a second. But he has a great perspective to help us prep and break this game down. I can't wait to talk. First and foremost, though, we want to say thank you and show our love to the sponsors, and everybody else that supports this channel. It's free to show love, so make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. We really, really appreciate it. It helps us to continue to grow and to get the word out for people out there. We had Keenan Womack on yesterday from Orange Bloods. He did an NBA betting preview with us via BUSR. We have another video dropping tomorrow on Texas men's basketball, Chris Beard Year 2. Stay tuned for that. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming y'all's way in regards to people visiting the channel. And it's because you guys are hitting that like button and subscribing, help us grow. First sponsor we want to recognize, BUSR, busr.com/fanatic, the official sports book, the official betting partner of Fanatic Perspective. Hit that promo code sports100FP. You get 100% free play match on all initial deposits within the first 24 hours. And you get 25 free casino chips. We got NBA started up now. A lot of people are tipping off officially tonight. We have, as we're recording this on a Wednesday, by the way, but Thursday night football, all of your betting needs, 24/7 reliable customer service. Right now, Austin, I think the spread, are we at what, -6, -7 Texas?
Yeah, -6.5, depending on who you look at. I've seen -6 is probably the most common.
So if you're looking to lock in on betting this game that we're getting ready to break down, Texas versus Oklahoma State, check out BUSR. And I also want to give a shout out to our brand new sponsor, Last Stand Hats. So many people out there, y'all are familiar, especially in the Texas community. But fun fact, Last Stand Hats has Oklahoma State merch on their website. A lot of stuff for the pokes out there. So check out laststandhats.com/fanatic perspective. Promo code Fanatic10 will get you 10% off at checkout. Look at this hat that Mike sent over. It's beautiful. I'd be rocking it right now, but my hair going crazy, Austin. Hair going crazy, or else I'd be rocking it. But check out Last Stand Hats. We also got shirts, polos, whole bunch of stuff coming. Stuff coming for Texas basketball, stuff coming for Dallas. A lot of cool stuff going on. So shout out to Last Stand Hats. Austin, give the people your background. I got you labeled as the Big 12 guru, man, because you are dialed into this conference, my friend.
Yeah, that's some high praise. I have the unique background. I actually graduated from Oklahoma State back in 2017. There, I was student assistant for men's basketball under Coach Underwood, who's now at Illinois. Coach Boynton, who was an assistant at the time, now the head coach of the Pokes up there. But both great guys. After I graduated, briefly went down to Austin for that summer and worked with UT men's basketball before I ultimately took a grad assistant job here in Dallas, Dallas Baptist University. DBU is where I got my master's degree, and that kind of led me where I am today, teaching and coaching Prestonwood here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So pretty tapped into both. Grew up in a UT family, but obviously that led me north to Stillwater. But pretty dialed into both programs. But not only that, just wherever the Big 12 kind of leads in whatever sport is kind of what I'm tapped into. So definitely excited to get it going.
So with that being said, and I know some people in the comments are going to be intrigued by your rooting interests and all those things. But in terms of this matchup, the last few years, it's been close games. At least I'll say at least since Spencer Sanders has been there, to be fair, because there's a lot of jokes about how long Spencer Sanders has been in the Big 12. But The battles that we've had in the unique games, and when Tyler Wallace was around and Chuba Hubbard, and just the personnel that's gone through, but our battles with him, whether it was with Tom Herman and now Steve Sarkisian. When you think of this particular matchup and this year now with Texas, you know, looking to ascend in the Big 12. Last year, I felt like we played y'all right after right after the tragic, incident that happened in the Cotton Bowl, and we're trending down, and we blow another lead. What's the vibe to you with this football game, going into Saturday?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's homecoming in Stillwater, which, if you're familiar with Oklahoma State at all, it's America's best homecoming, and an extra X amount of people, thousands of people flock in from everywhere. And if you're going to go to one game a year, that's usually the one you try to go to. Texas, won the Christmas present of being on the schedule for that game. Luckily, for the Horns, it's at 2:30. I think you know how night games in Stillwater go. It's just crazy every week, but man, I don't know. I think back to last year, the Casey Thompson pick six that, was the light switch to really just spark Texas into the downward spiral to ultimately lose that game. But then again, like you said, I mean, there's the throwback uniforms with Tom Herman and Gundy meeting at midfield, and Breckenhager losing his mind. And I mean, this game is just crazy. I mean, like every Big 12 game, but both teams have gotten the best of each other, the last couple of years. I really think Texas should have won last year, honestly. I think Oklahoma State might even know that. If I recall correctly, Coach Gundy even said in his post-game presser last year, like, I don't know how we did that, basically, which, is a testament to their resilience, coming back and beating Texas. But I think Texas just kind of crumbled, and that, like you said, just kind of led into the 5, 6, 7 game losing streak eventually. But the energy is different. It depends on who you see. I know, our Josh Pate over at the Late Kick, his podcast.
Shout out to
He,
Josh Pate, late kick
yeah,
Josh. We love him.
he's great. He's heavy on the horns. He thinks this is the Quinn Ewers come back to reality, like we saw against OU game. We can dive into the stats on Oklahoma State's pass defense, but 6 points is a lot. We know that, especially in the Big 12. I mean, we both obviously thought 17 and a half last week, Texas Iowa State was a lot, even though some picked to cover, some didn't. But this is a toss up game. And like we were talking a little bit off air, I mean, the winner of this game feels really, really good. The loser of this game, who knows? They're kind of not shambles per se, but kind of what do we do now? But I mean, man, we'll get into it obviously, but this is a toss up. This is going to be a big time test, for both teams. One's coming off a gritty win, the other's coming off a pretty heartbreaking loss, to be honest, especially on the road. So we'll see.
You speak of the road, and that's where I think for me, regardless of the health of Spencer Sanders, Texas has to prove they can win on the road, a true road game. We didn't even the Cotton Bowl being neutral site, that turned into a damn house party for Texas very, very quickly. And I still, and yes, Quinn Ewers did not play. Xavier Worthy got hurt. We know what happened at Texas Tech, and I've we've beaten that horse a million times. But the road record with Steve Sarkisian since we've been here, right, and since he's been here, has not been good. And so the next step, and as Texas starts to get healthier, I think Texas actually is getting healthier. I expect Ryan Watts to play. We know we lost him last week, and we saw the impact of Ryan Watts, when he left the game against Iowa State versus when he was in there. So the road thing is, and then on top of that, you're a 6-point road favorite, as a ranked team. First time I think since 2009 when we also went to Stillwater and won 41-14. Now that was a really fun night. I do remember that game very well. But this is a team right now where this is one of those last mental battles or last mental hurdles that they have to get over. And so from a Texas standpoint, I look at Oklahoma State, and you guys seem vulnerable to me than what it even looked like just a couple weeks ago. Is that fair to say that? I mean, Oklahoma State, I felt like the beginning when we lost to Texas Tech and Oklahoma State went to Baylor, right? And then you were at that game and won, and you were winning some of these games decisively. It felt like you guys were really in the driver's seat. Now we're starting to see things change in the conference. Baylor loses to West Virginia last week, and all these wrinkles. Kansas goes down. TCU is now feeling really good about themselves. I look at this in terms of from a pressure standpoint, really being on Texas's end to prove that they can go on the road in a Big 12 environment and handle business as a favorite.
Mhm.
And so that's just kind of the mental gymnastics I think I'm personally going through as a fan, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of. I mean, this goes back to Oklahoma State losing last week, but starting out that game, Spencer Sanders 2 quick touchdowns, rolling a little bit, 24-7. Okay, this is going to kind of cruise. If you think about the week or the week before at Baylor, or the week before, excuse me, it was kind of the same thing. It was Oklahoma State got up, kind of let Baylor creep back into it. We see the conservativeness a little bit, trying to run out the clock a little bit, and then they escape. Shapen throws an interception. Jason Taylor, who always seems to make those plays, he's the one that picks six. Casey Thompson, I mean, he's just always there. It seems like kind of to save the day. And Oklahoma State escapes, and then you see Max Duggan, who's on one right now. To be honest, uh, it just has that look in his eyes. And late in the game there, I specifically told a couple buddies I was texting, I was like, "This is happening. This is going to finally bite Mike Gundy." OSU fans will tell you between him and Casey Dunn, the offensive scheme they have, obviously, Dunn's been his guy for a long time. They trust in what they have. They like their scheme. But we've kind of seen this trend the last 3 or 4 years where they get up and they almost kind of try to run the clock out with like 12 minutes left. And I mean, you and I both know that's too much time to start, doing inside zone on 2nd and 19. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. We kind of saw the same thing with Texas. I mean, if Xavier Hutchinson, catches that pass, I think the tone of our conversation changes, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
who knows? Maybe Texas creates a last minute drive and goes and wins it. But this league, man, is just, you really don't know. I mean, and you don't know until the clock hits zero. So it just all depends on what you get, and I think this is a game where we're gonna know early, kind of what we're gonna get. We can get into the X's and O's and stuff soon, but you know, I think Quinn Ewers in Texas last week was not as sharp in the first quarter. They didn't score in the first quarter. Kind of took them a while to get settled in a little
With
bit,
short
and then
fields.
right, right. I mean, they get the blocked punt. DeMarvion Overshone and Anthony Cook, God bless them, just jump on the football, right? I mean, just kind of kicking around. You could see Sark on the sideline in Cobra mode, like, guys, pick up the ball. It's a free seven. And in Big 12 games, I was telling my buddies too, I'm like, they're gonna regret not getting that 7 points on that scoop and score. Watch. And sure enough, A Cook makes the play there late in the game. That was not targeting, by the way. I'm on record, not targeting. But anyway, yeah, I mean, just both of these teams are just in totally different paths right now. I think, one, like I said, is coming off of a gritty W, feeling pretty good. You feel like you're going to win it all after a win. Then, Oklahoma State fans, they're like, man, that's the one we could not let get away. And this league is so tough to win in. If you drop one and you're losing the whole game, that's fine. We live with that. But the ones you should win, I think Texas should have beat Texas Tech. That's the one that Longhorn fans are kind of like, man, that's the one we should not have let get away. That's equivalent to Oklahoma State and TCU. That was the one they should not, have let get away. But here we are. I mean, it happens, and teams are hungry. Teams smell blood, and this is the we see it a lot, but this year in particular, this is the year I think where Big 12 coaches smell blood in the water different than they have. I mean, any sign of weakness, it's like, oh shoot, we better buckle up, right? Not that they haven't done that in the past, but I mean, is any lead safe in this conference anymore?
No,
I don't know.
No, I mean, unless you go into your rival game and you have no quarterback,
Right.
because you didn't recruit properly for your backups, but that's neither here nor there. Um, let's get into the X's and O's, right? In terms of just how each opponent will attack each other, right? Because we know, you look at you guys lost Jim Knowles to Ohio State.
Mm.
The personnel that left this team, we know Taylor's still there, and there's still some good players on the Oklahoma State defense, but it is a far cry from the defense we saw that was so good in Big 12 play last year, going into the Big 12 championship game. And I'm starting to see kind of the old Oklahoma State where you can, it's hard to ignore what Quentin Johnston did last week and some of the stuff
Former
that
former former Texas commit, by the way.
oh gosh, don't I was the one that brought him up, so it's fair to
Was a
mention what happened.
was a layup.
And I look at this as we just had a really, really tough test against a really good Iowa State defense, an Iowa State defense that I think is going to give everyone left on their schedule real challenges. And if their offense can do anything like they did last week, they should be able to at least salvage some of their season, even though they're 0-4 in the conference. But when I'm looking at Quinn Ewers and him still not turning the football over last week, I think he got a lot of not heat, but there was a lot of, oh, Quinn didn't have his best day, or Quinn didn't do this, or blah blah blah. Well, still had 3 touchdown passes, still
Mhm.
ran the football effectively as a team, and I thought it was a great test for him after having success because everything started feeling easy, especially when you play a team like Alabama, you play a team like Oklahoma, regardless of how good or bad they are. These are big names, these are big spotlight games. And so having that Iowa State, game and kind of, I thought it was humbling, not just for Quinn, but the kids, the staff. As we look at attacking this Oklahoma State defense, I mean, the advanced stats are there, the numbers are there. He should be able to perform and get
Mhm.
back on track and have a really nice day in Stillwater, regardless of the environment. I mean, I just don't see the same group, even when I watch you guys. What beyond just the TCU game, like you brought up Blake Shapen, at the end of the game as well. So, do you agree or disagree, or where do you see some holes? Well, we can kind of start with Texas attacking and then go the other way.
Yeah, I mean, what glances off the screen on my notes here, I mean, Oklahoma State's 121st in total defense. They give up 480 a game. I mean, as opposed to 10th last year. They're nearly dead last in passing defense. I mean, that just other than Jabbar Muhammad, I mean, obviously the other guys are doing their best. They're playing hard. I mean, you got gashed in your secondary. Whether that's guys transferring. I mean, Jarek Bernard Converse, LSU, Tanner
LSU.
McAllister, Ohio State, Jernigan, Missouri, Mills, Texas Tech. I mean, Mike Gundy was public in this press conference this week. All 4 of those guys will be starting on this defense now. I mean, they left. I wish him the best. I know he does too, but uh, I don't know. Sometimes the grass might not always be greener at certain places, but
My
they will be
buddy Billy
starting.
loves Converse, by the way. He's an
He's a good
LSU
player.
fan.
He's a
He
good player.
loves
I mean, he was a good player. I mean, you can obviously see, the defensive line. You got Brandon Evers, Tyler Lacey, Colin Oliver. Those guys are steady. Those guys are going to produce. Trace Ford, when he wants to turn it on, has been really good. But man, I mean, just in the secondary, it's been gash city lately, and I think Quinn, especially on those deep crossers, those deep outs that we see to Whittington. I mean, we saw him last week a little bit. We saw one to Casey Kane, obviously get dropped. I mean, that will be there, you would think, right? And defending the run, they've been okay, but I don't think they faced backs as good as Bijan and Roshan. I think you would agree with that. Kendre Miller has really impressed me this year. Obviously, all of TCU has impressed everybody, but man, through the air, this could be a game, where you see maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns out of Quinn. I'm not saying he's, gonna hang the moon and not turn the ball over because we know Quinn can get a little gunslinger. I mean, that backwards pass early in the game against Iowa State where he threw it behind him. I think it was the JT Sanders, and then realized, oh shoot, that's a backwards pass. I got
Yeah.
to land on this, right? I mean, he's still human, guys. I mean, he's a freshman. He's gonna make those kind of mistakes. I think you saw him walk over, and Sark was kind of laughing. He was just kind of like, "What are you doing there?" And I think Quinn just kind of nodded his head. But I think through the air, Quinn should be able to get in a rhythm early. It's one of the keys I have to the game. Texas is going to have to get in a rhythm early, but also a thing that not a lot of people are talking about that I've seen against Oklahoma State. What has killed them lately, and really what killed Texas against Texas Tech, is the sustained drives. I mean, you saw the play count when Texas Tech played Texas was in the hundreds. You
Yep.
saw TCU time of possession was nearly double Oklahoma State in the second half. I mean, it was Spencer Sanders and company going out, run, deep ball, incomplete, punt, where Max Duggan leads them down for a 14 play, 8-minute drive. And then, you're panic mode because you're like, we're probably going to get the ball two more times. So that's a lot of pressure, right? So I don't know. I think if Texas offense can sustain those drives, obviously you want to score points. But if you can see Ewers and company string together those 13, 14, 15 play drives where it's Bijan gain of 5, Whittington, little swing pass for 4, Roshan for 3, move the chains, right? That's what wears down a defense. And obviously, Oklahoma State late in the second half, but Texas really all year. This might be the battle of who's the worst at getting off the field on third and fourth downs. So, I mean, both teams have made you pull your hair out, honestly. I mean, we saw it from Deckers last week. I think our boy Kieran, said, why does Texas make these mid quarterbacks look like Heisman winners? But I mean, it's third and 14, and we're going fadeaway jumper to Hutchinson on the sideline, nobody within 5 yards. And it's like, what are we doing? Is this Gary or is this PK? We got to make a decision, right? That's
Right.
kind of the noise. That's the noise from Texas fans, right? When Texas is great, oh, thank you, Gary Patterson. When they're bad, it's fire PK, right? So what
the,
is it? I don't
the
know.
the Gary Patterson effect when it's great, right?
Exactly. So, and again, to Oklahoma State's defense, they bring in Derek Mason. You know all about him. He was at Vanderbilt. He's been at
Mhm.
Auburn. He didn't implement his own defense. He wanted to take Knowles's 4-2-5 and kind of implement that and say, "Hey, this is working. Let's change a couple things up personnel wise, but other than that, I want to keep it the same." So far, it's been very bend not break, but last week it broke. So that's just one of the keys that I think for Texas. You got to exploit the passing game. You got to sustain long drives, and obviously, if Texas can stop the run, which Oklahoma State's 8th in the conference right now in rushing, Dom Richardson's done a decent job, but he's not a volume back, right? He's just not a volume back. So those are 3 of the big ones I got.
And going back to the Derek Mason thing, because that was a big name hire after losing Jim Knowles. I'm glad you addressed that, for especially for me and the folks listening, because I'm learning a lot from you as you're speaking right now. And Derek Mason, who I have a lot of respect for, and he has been very accomplished in college football. That's a first year type of thing where it's always struggle, especially when you see that with defensive coordinators that have to come into the position he was, where not only are you replacing someone who was very successful, but you just mentioned all of the personnel that was lost, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm really curious to see how that evolves over time, or if there's even any improvement or changes or adjustments that are made the back end of the Big 12 schedule. I think that's probably what a lot of Cowboys fans are looking for right now, to be quite frank with you. But from our vantage point, just kind of finishing up on the Texas side in terms of keys. I do think running the football is something from a standpoint of helping sustain those drives and helping us stay on the field. I think that's been a key to more success of us staying on time and in rhythm and avoiding third and longs, avoiding second and longs, being able to convert, some of that dirty yardage in some of those situations we've had. We were down 21-17, Austin, right? And at the
Hmm.
10:58 left in the fourth quarter, and we go on a 6-minute drive, 6-7 minute
Hmm.
drive. Texas hasn't been able to do that and get out and not get out of their own way in a long time. Those type of things are very encouraging, because we haven't been generating the big 1, 2 play touchdowns like we were quite frankly last year. We haven't had those at the same volume. We've had some big plays, but not generating them for one reason or another. And so that's one thing I'm paying attention to is even though you feel better about Oklahoma State's run defense, I do think keeping us on time and having that balance there. So one thing I'll bring up before we go to the reverse side of things, a lot of conversation right now about who's the other, outside receiver opposite of Xavier Worthy. We know Jordan Whittington is our guy in the slot and has really been dynamic even in 12 personnel when we have him and Zay in there. And we know Jatavian Sanders is probably our second guy, especially when we get in red zone.
Freak.
But the Casey Canes of the world and the Tariq Miltons of the world and some other guys that Sark and Brendan Marion have been trying to work in, I think there's been a lot of conversation about how does this work. But from my standpoint, there's a reason why we run so much jumbo. There's a reason why we're so 12 personnel heavy. And I just want to tell Texas fans, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. You can do you can come out there and run 11 and 10 personnel, but then I'm going to hear people getting mad when Bijan doesn't have his carries. I'm going to hear people getting mad when Roshan is all of a sudden forgotten about, right? And so Bijan Robinson has 28 carries last week?
Yeah, something like that.
Remember that used to be a talking point in our fan base? We
Mm-hmm.
don't get enough. We don't get Bijan the ball enough. We're also seeing him being showcased where? In the passing game. We can run empty and have, whether it's him, whether it's Keelan Robinson, a multitude of people. So just because we don't have that established guy yet does not mean that we are destitute or devoid of weapons. It's just strategically, we're starting to get our act together in terms of the run game, so you can have more jumbo. I just want to get that out there because I think there's such an emphasis on, whether it's a Jai Hall, and I get it. I want to see these brothers on the field too. But you can't do everything and then serve everybody and get everybody their numbers. So I just want to make that clear with the fans.
Yeah, I would say, just looking here, Bijan is leading the Big 12 in rushing at 5.7 yards a carry, averaging 111 yards a game, and that's just rushing. You see what a weapon he is, obviously, in the pass game, and I feel like it's not a problem per se, but you see, especially Texas fans saying, "When's Jai Hall going to get his multi-touchdown game? How was that Whittington's first touchdown last week?" It's a running football team. Sark has said it himself. Texas is a running football team. If you can line up in 12 and maul people, which I'm not going to say they've mauled people every week, but that's been the bread and butter, you don't need to throw the ball. I know Quinn's dynamic, but two out of three things that can happen when you pass the ball are bad, right? I'm not saying don't pass. That's not what anybody's saying, but I agree with you. I think, people are wanting Tariq Milton more involved and Brendan Thompson more involved and Xavier Worthy to get more than he has. I'm like, you can't feed everybody what they want to be fed, right? And like Sark said late in the game, he doesn't look at plays to call. He looks at players, right? Who does he trust? He trusts number 5 and number 2, probably more than number 8 right now, right? It's just call it what it is. It's just a fact. Do you want the ball in those guys' hands or do you want the ball in the air, which bad things could potentially happen? And it's like Sark said, or not Sark, really Roshan Johnson said, Tashard Choice said, if y'all lose this game, it's on you, right? That's what he told him going into the fourth quarter. He told Bijan and Roshan, if y'all lose, it's on you. They took it upon themselves to say, no, we're not going to let that happen. I think you touched on that plenty of times in the offseason. Texas has a group of seniors and upperclassmen that are refusing to let the past, stuff happen where you fold and say, let's kick it in. It's over, right? We're down, facing a little bit of adversity. It's over with. I think those two guys and Whittington, he can be added to the mix. Christian Jones, Jalen Ford, some of the older guys, they're sick and tired of it, right? They're going to do something about it. If you say, hey, we're going to run the ball for 6 minutes, it's going to be on you guys. They want that challenge. Where you've seen in the past, shoot, man, Texas is up 7 with 5 minutes left. Got to put a drive together. 31 seconds later, a punt, right? It's just, it can't happen. It can't happen. And we've seen it, it worked in Iowa State. It worked at Iowa State last week, or in Austin, I mean, but that's what Oklahoma State ran into at TCU. 4 out of the last 5 drives in Fort Worth, 3 and out in less than a minute and a half. Can't happen. Can't happen.
To your point, Austin, look at the people involved on the Roshan first down, where Jordan Whittington comes and pushes him,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's exactly what you're describing. And that's how our team is built right now.
And that's okay. That's
And that's
okay.
okay.
And that's okay. Run the football, dominate the line of scrimmage. The games go by faster. It's safer. It's okay.
Let's talk about Oklahoma State's keys.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple, obviously. Really, before we get into that, I want to touch on Spencer Sanders a little bit. The good, the bad, the ugly. Oklahoma State fans know at this point what they're going to get with him. He does have 8 interceptions in his last 5 Big 12 games. That is a bit alarming. This year, he hasn't had it as consistently, I guess. He's thrown an interception in every other game. But Oklahoma State fans will tell you it seems like in every critical moment where you need to not throw a pick or fumble the football, it happens, right? They're trying to seal the game away at Baylor. What happens? Throws a bad pick, right? Baylor's back in it. What does he do? TCU, deep ball to Braden Johnson, a bit overthrown, pick. It's like anything but, right? I tell this to people all the time. It's like in baseball. If you have second and third, nobody out. What's the worst thing you can do, right? Strike out or pop up in the infield. Anything but that, right? Let's take a punt, for example. I mean, just it seems like lately he's made the
Just
anything
don't kill
but.
me.
Yes, exactly. It seems like he has a little bit of a tendency to make the anything but that play, right? Late in the game, you're on the 35-yard line. You got to have a field goal to win it. What's the worst thing that can happen? We saw it Hudson Card against Bama. Thankfully, Bert Auburn, bailed him out. You can't take a sack there. You can't, right? Anything but that. And Texas has been an anything but team the last 4 or 5 years. You've seen it on those late game drives. And Oklahoma State, I will say, is typically anti that. Like if they need a 5-minute drive, they're going to find 5 minutes to run the ball down the field, end it with 7 points, sign, seal, deliver it, get out of there. That's the Gundy special, right? But I will say a couple keys to the game for victory for Oklahoma State. Spencer has to be great. He has to, and we don't know how healthy he is, right? We saw the line jump from 1 to 2 to 3. I mean, all the way to 6 in a matter of 48 hours. Maybe they know something I don't know. I think he's going to play. But a separated shoulder is a separated shoulder, right? I've heard it's his non-throwing shoulder, but still, it's just not anything to mess around with. He's coming off of probably his worst game of the year, and if you look at him statistically, he balls out after he has a bad performance, right? He threw 4 picks in the Big 12 championship against Baylor. They get down early to Notre Dame. He scores 30 unanswered and wins the Fiesta Bowl, right? So he's a gamer. He doesn't want to lose to Texas his last go round. Well, he does have a COVID year, but I don't foresee him coming back next year. I think Spencer has to be great. I think they have to run the ball well. I know they're 8th in the conference right now total, but Dom Richardson in space has done pretty well. He's a volume back. Where they lack is kind of depth. I mean, Oklahoma State's always had a Justice Hill, a Chris Carson, a Chuba Hubbard, right? Kind of a 1-2 punch. I mean, they got Jaden Nixon this year. He's former teammates of Jalen Ford over at Frisco Lone Star, right down the road from where I am. Really good player. But if you know anything about Gundy, he's almost anti playing freshmen. He just doesn't like doing it. Doesn't think they're ready yet. It's a way more physical game than these guys are used to. And then they have Ollie Gordon as well, the kid from Euless Trinity, who's a physical specimen, but still 19 years old, right? So I think they have to run the ball
Ollie was a
effectively.
warrior, bro.
A
Ollie,
beast.
Ollie played against Quinn and them, and again when they were at South Lake. That was a crazy
Yep.
game.
And they asked him to do a lot. He lined up in Wildcat. He played defense half the time. I mean, he's a good player. But TCU made OSU one-dimensional late in the game, and you saw what happened, right? You get the 3 and outs. I mean, if you can't run the football, which Texas has been pretty good against the run this year, so they have that working in their favor, I think. And then my last key, it's pretty underrated: special teams and field position. If you look at every special teams metric, Oklahoma State is top 5 in the country. They're the only team in the country. They've not missed a field goal. They've not missed an extra point. They're the only team in the country that has a person have a punt return touchdown and a kickoff return touchdown. Tom Hutton's like 32 years old. He's not coming back, obviously, but he loves what he's kind of made in Stillwater for himself. One of the top three in net punt, and that's kind of what Gundy does. You see him aggressive every now and then, but I would think in a game like this, he's going to make Quinn drive 90 on him, right? He's going to pin him back on the 10 inside the 5 and say, hey, drive on us, right? Kind of gonna ask him to do that where it's, the actual anti of Joey McGuire, where we're going for it on 4th and 10 on our own 20, because you see what happens when that doesn't work out. They tried that against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State gets the stops, scores 2 plays later, ball game, right? We talked about that, a couple weeks ago. This McGuire thing is super aggressive, but when it doesn't work, you look dumb, right? And teams are going to expose you. Dave Aranda, the same thing. We were texting at the Oklahoma State Baylor game.
Yep.
4th and 9 on their own 26, bomb to Baldwin. It worked for him, right? It worked for him. But if it doesn't, Oklahoma State's in the red zone, already up 14 points. They could have gone up 21 with under 10 minutes to play. It's probably over at that point.
So Austin, I have a couple questions. And actually before I get to my questions for Austin, um, I hope you knocked on something when you read off the special team stats about not
Oh, yeah.
making any kicks, or
Oh, yeah.
because
Always.
we come after kicks.
No
We
doubt.
we like to block kicks over here. That's one thing that has been consistent under one Jeff Banks and Keelan Robinson over here. But in all seriousness, you guys have actually been lauded recently on social media just for the special teams tactics, innovation, and how seriously that's taken at the program. And honestly, when you're playing a lot of tight football games, you're playing a lot of one possession football games, that matters significantly.
Mhm.
And we're a little concerned on our end because I've been asking, what's up with brother Auburn right now?
Little shaky lately.
What's hey, let's wake up, Bert.
Hmm.
I'm with you,
Yep.
brother. I'm with you, Bert, but we need that consistency to come back.
Yep.
And so that's been a challenge for Texas. I do. So going back to the Spencer Sanders thing, Texas, I agree with you in terms of when it comes to I don't want to say be disrespectful of Don Richardson, excuse me, and what he brings to the table as a runner,
Hmm.
but to me, it's like I say with Floyd Mayweather. It's straight up and down, no special effects. There's nothing there where I'm freaking out. There's
No.
nothing there from a run blocking perspective that I don't think that we can't handle. The way Jalen Ford is playing and the way my defensive line is playing, that plays into my strength. This is something I tried to warn with Iowa State last week and some folks and saying, hey, we have really improved from where we were last year against the run.
Hmm.
And granted, a lot of that stuff was more wide zone, outside stuff, but we were terrible. And collectively as a group, we've bowed up there. And y'all know where I'm going with this, the quarterback run game. I mean, we gave it up to Hunter Deckers last week. And
Watch
if
out.
you have a guy that can move remotely, that scares me as a Texas fan with this defense.
Hmm.
And we've seen now the last couple of years, we've actually contained Spencer Sanders decently. Now I know he went for 400 a couple years ago in the air, but on the ground, we've contained him. But I remember 2019, I was at the game where he ran for like 230 or 130, like 130 or 140 on us. So I know what he's capable of when he can get out on the open field. And I know for us, that's been a weakness defending quarterback run. What say you there?
Yeah, I mean he's got eight. He's got 8 touchdowns with his feet this year. It's the most by any quarterback in the Big 12, obviously. But this is where health goes into it, right? Do you think Gundy is going to call quarterback draw with essentially a shoulder that's a hit away from being see ya? Right? I don't know. I don't know. I don't get paid to make those decisions. I don't want to. But that's I mean Gundy says it best. When you have a mobile quarterback, you outman the defense by half a man, right? You can cover every receiver that's eligible. You can cover the back in the backfield. You usually, outside of a spy, don't cover the quarterback, right? You can lock up everybody downfield. You widen the pocket. Spencer's going to take off, right? And I tell people all the time, he's the best running back in the Big 12 with the best arm, right? Name another guy that can run as good and throw as good as him. If you say Max Duggan, that's fine. If you want to say the other quarterbacks too, but a guy with breakaway speed. You saw it in Bedlam last year. I mean, he made my man Patrick Fields for OU look slow, right? I mean, he broke away late in the game. I mean, that's a legit 4.4 4.5 guy. Uh, you know, played everything in high school. They ran him all the time at Denton Ryan, where he was Gatorade Player of the Year. But man, I think health is huge. Now Spencer's a gamer. He's a tough. You know what? Gundy said it himself. I think if it's like 4th and 1 and we got to sneak it, Sanders is not going to say, "Oh no, coach, I don't want the ball."
No,
Right?
he's not tapping out of a play call either.
No,
So
absolutely not.
that leads me to the next question for you then, because at me not knowing, not this, who, if there's anything that were to happen, we're going to assume Spencer Sanders goes. But let's say he takes something bad to the shoulder or whatever. What do you have behind him? Right? Because we've now seen in this conference a lot of people having to play with back. We saw this with Baylor last week with West Virginia with drones, right? We played Hudson Card. Kansas played with a backup quarterback last week. OU was playing with their tight end. What is your backup quarterback situation at Oklahoma State? And does that advantage Oklahoma State in terms of having similar skill set, or what's back there behind Spencer?
Well, I'll say this first and foremost. I mean, backup quarterback is the most undervalued position in college football, thanks to the transfer portal and NIL. Who wants to be a backup, right? Nobody, right? The backup is Gunnar Gundy, son of Mike Gundy, who actually is an underrated runner. If you watch some of his high school film, he's a big kid. He's a lefty, kind of built like his dad, honestly. He's got a handful of passes against Arkansas Pine Bluff where the score was 60-0 at halftime. I don't think it would be a Davis Bevel situation. I still think they could successfully move the ball. I think our boy Homer said in his preview video, Gundy is one of the best at playing with the hand he's dealt, right? He can adopt on the fly. This goes back to, Brandon Weeden, Justin Blackman. They never ran the ball, right? This goes back to Chuba Hubbard, Mason Rudolph, James Washington. Same thing, right? Whatever players he has, he's going to get the most out of them. You have to think they have prepared for that this week. Hey, our quarterback is fragile. We're a hit away from going to Gunner. And if it's not Gunner, it's Garrett Rangel, another Frisco kid, 4-star, pretty highly recruited. I think has taken 2 or 3 snaps this year. So we don't know. This is kind of like the OU fans calling for Nick Evers, saying he's going to be the second coming of, Joe Montana. He's never played a game, guys. I don't know, right?
And the
I'm not
coaches
saying
know that.
exactly, right? It's I'll rag on OU for a little bit. Put Micah Bowens in there, put General Booty in there. Guys, he's 3rd and 4th on the depth chart for a reason, right? Am I crazy for saying that? I don't know. But I mean, Texas is spoiled in the backup quarterback department. Let's just say, God forbid, something happens to Quinn. I don't think a logical Texas fan, really goes into freak out mode with Hudson Card. Why would you? He's kept you in every ball game, right? He was a minute away from beating Alabama. He was 30 seconds away and overtime away from beating Texas Tech, right? I mean, he has not lost you any ball games. Let's not get that twisted. Hudson Card is not the reason Texas has 2 L's. I mean, he's just not. But you could say the depth is a little shaky, obviously, behind Spencer. But I think it's shaky for almost everyone, not only in the Big 12, but the country outside of a Texas, right? Where you have a proven guy taking meaningful snaps, been through it, been on the road like a Hudson Card, right? I mean, yes, I think, Gunnar Gundy can be a gamer, but again, unproven. Your opinion is as good as dirt, right? We don't know. We just don't know. And against a Texas defense, that has been pretty good corralling the quarterback this year, that would not be a good recipe, I think, for the Pokes.
So let's start as we start to move to predictions, Austin. One other concern I have defensively, and this is just with everyone, as well as we've played secondary wise against the pass, and our pass rush is better. Our points per game is tremendous, and there's certain analytics where we're really, really, just night and day from last year. Austin, the Gary Patterson effect, right?
Yep,
Just out there all
absolutely.
over the defense. So my question though is more so, did you see anything last week against in the Iowa State game though, where we started blowing some coverages? We started giving some things up that Hunter Deckers didn't necessarily is Hunter Deckers threw for 300 something. I think we can all look at that film and say he left some meat on the bone, right?
Mhm.
Along with the receivers. Did you see anything, knowing our secondary as well as you do, where you're like, I see some significant opportunity for Oklahoma State and their pass catchers?
Yeah, I mean, off season it was, oh, we're gonna play man. It's gonna be Jade up there. It's gonna be Deshaun Jameson. It's gonna be Ryan Watts. Which let me hit on Ryan Watts for a second. When he goes out, Texas is different in a bad way. When he goes out, they're out in a bad way. And I'm not picking on Austin Jordan. I'm not picking on Jameer Johnson, who I don't know if we even saw. I think they went Jordan over Johnson. I'm not sure why.
They went
But
Austin Jordan and they went Terrence Brooks
right, right.
before they went to Jameer. Mhm.
Right. Well, you saw in Jordan's limited action, albeit he's a freshman. That's what happens, man. If you're a second late, it's six. It's Big 12 football, right? He's a second late on a 3 yard slant, and what happens, right? I mean, so I don't know. I think Ryan Watts is key.
A Cook got some heat for that too, because
Absolutely.
they said that he was expecting A Cook to help him, and
Yep.
I think A Cook got taken out too.
Yep.
But to your point, chemistry, communication, when
Yep.
backups start coming in, it starts to get leaky all of a
Yep.
sudden. So
Well,
look at continue.
here's what scares me is Spencer. You can look at who he distributes the ball to, whether that's Brennan Presley, Braden Johnson, Bryson Green. Blaine Green's hurt right now. Whether it's Schultz, Cassidy, any of those guys, they have a multitude of receivers that are proven. I think they're 6 or 7 deep in pass catchers, right? How many deep was Iowa State? I'll wait, right? I mean, I'm just saying, and it was the same guy consistently on third down. I think, as a Texas fan, that would concern me as okay, they have one proven playmaker and kind of a half playmaker in Noel. No disrespect to him. He played a good game, but he's not Xavier Hutchinson,
He's
right?
not. He played a good game, but it was
No.
busted type stuff. You're
Right.
right.
And it's
Whenever they needed it, it was Xavier Hutchinson every single time.
right. And you almost as a fan, we don't have the all 22, at least I don't. I wish I did. You almost think how? Like how do you let this guy get so open? I mean, can you not blanket him? Can we not have a little bit of help? Can you live and die with somebody else beating you, right? That's the Bill Belichick model. We're going to take away your best player and we might lose, but we're not going to let him beat us, right? And that's another thing. We'll go back to this. Oklahoma State, who are they going to try to take away? 5 every game, just like everybody else, right? So that's where you got to see JT, Jay Witt, Worthy, maybe a Milton, maybe another guy step up. Whereas Oklahoma State, they don't really have a go-to guy. They're all pretty reliable. Brennan Presley underneath is a weapon. You saw it last year in Bedlam. Braden Johnson can go up and get a jump ball. JP Richardson now can go get a jump ball. Go look at Spencer Sanders' second touchdown. He mossed Hodges Tomlinson, right? I mean, and that's a 5'10 walk on, right? I mean, they're proven ball catchers. It scares me a little bit, especially when they play so tight. But in hindsight to that, when you see Texas kind of lay back in the cover four soft zone, I mean, man, it's like 8, 9 a pop. And it's like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. How many times have I told you that? Right. Where it's like, man, you almost want to bring up, RIP in peace, wherever you are, Todd Orlando, but one of those delayed blitzes where you're like, give us something, right? I mean, at least make it quick, right? Don't just nickel and dime us down the field. In all seriousness, I hope Todd Orlando's doing well, but you know more than anybody, those delayed blitzes would make you rip your hair out. But anyway,
I love the
it's
angry texts whenever you send me them during the game, man, because I'm with you there. You just y'all. Austin looks calm and measured right now on camera during games.
easy now, easy now.
I will
Um,
say, to add to add to that point and to wrap up, because I want to get into predictions.
sure.
I do I do think that Texas has to figure something out um, from a comfort standpoint, because it's also a marriage of worrying about quarterback run and having fits. And the better your pass rush is, the more that can help and marrying the two. We saw in the Tech game they were not aligned. Hopefully, we're aligned in this game and moving forward. But Braden Johnson and Presley, especially those two, they've
Hmm.
played in this game before. They've played Texas
Yep.
multiple times. I mean, all these guys. So this
Yep.
isn't some of the faces. It's not new, right?
Right.
They've gone against Deshaun, and Deshaun's gone against them, and
And let me
those things.
and
So
let
let's jump in fiction.
Well, I was gonna ask if you don't
Oh,
mind.
go ahead, Austin.
I was gonna ask you one question. If you were PK or Gary Patterson, and you see how Sam Deckers, or not Sam Deckers, Hunter Deckers, kind of diced you up there late in the game, and you know what Oklahoma State has, how would you defend it? What's your game plan?
My game plan is to actually, because of what I know of Spencer Sanders and knowing how sporadic he can be underneath, I'm actually going to try to set some traps for him. So I'm gonna make him think that he has something maybe over the top or whatever, and but also play to where I have, whether it's Overshown or Jalen Ford, they're constantly putting some pressure on him to make him make quick decisions. The longer we start to extend and allow him to be a playmaker, I think we're in trouble. And where Hunter Deckers was able to start to operate and get into rhythm, I don't want Spencer Sanders to get in. I keep saying it with all these mediocre quarterbacks. Not that Spencer Sanders is a mediocre quarterback.
Right.
Do not let them get into rhythm.
Nope.
It's a thing mentally with a lot of these guys. It's like basketball when you see the ball go in a couple times, right?
Yep.
Now,
They're still
now, now.
D1 athletes.
Mhm. What's the outcome of this one, Austin?
Man, I don't know. I've wrestled back and forth. For sure, I'm going to take the over 62. I would say, just because Gundy's proven it time and time again, he might take a loss every now and then. It is not like him to take back-to-back losses, especially at home. I will go Pokes 45, Texas 40. I think it's going to be very, very high scoring. I think you'll see both offense sustain a couple drives. It might look like 7-on-7 late in the fourth quarter, honestly, where everybody's rushing three, dropping eight, and it's just, flag football out there. I will go 45-40, Oklahoma State. Be on the lookout for a special teams play where we can revisit this and say that was the play. That's kind of what I'm going.
So I'm going Texas on this one, and I do think from a standpoint of going back to where we first started with Quinn Ewers, and what will be available to him this game. I do think that this is a game where he may raise his level of play a little bit,
Sure,
in
I can see it.
conjunction, just in terms of like, I saw something in that fourth quarter against Iowa State, not necessarily from him, but just from Worthy, Ewers, Bijan, Roshan. They just decided that we're the best players on the field today, and we're
Right.
going to do what we need to do. I think they're going to have to do that earlier, and I think they'll, because of what they encountered last week, and they've been hearing all week, Texas on the road, Texas on the road, Texas on the road, Texas on the road. Um, I don't know if it's. I do have the over as well, but I'm going to go 41-38 Texas. I do think this is going to be a very, very, very close game, but I have Texas pulling it out. So that's where I'm at with that. Austin, we will resume our Big 12. I'll put it this way: we'll resume our Big 12 conversation for the bye week when Texas has their bye week. I think the 29th, or is it no, the next
Yep.
week actually.
Yep.
Next week, because
Yep.
yeah, next week. So if you don't mind, I'd love to have you back on next week just to talk lay of the land in the Big 12 as a whole, because I really enjoyed this conversation and
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime.
breaking down everything. And I know you've already been through the Baylor game, you've been through the TCU game. So as we start to get through those games on our end in Austin, I need to have your insights, especially cheering for the Horns those particular weeks. But
Yeah.
you guys
I
heard
will.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I will be there on site in Stillwater, heading back for the first time in a couple years. So you can relax on the text a little bit. Probably won't be coming from me. Service inside BPS is absolutely brutal. So I will be there live on location, and really looking forward to a good game, regardless.
Man, we'll be safe up there. We'll debrief afterwards. And during our Big 12 video, we'll definitely talk about the aftermath in Stillwater. Is this the last time? I mean, they did talk. We'll talk about that. We'll save that for the next video.
We
But
got something in the tank. I already know what you're gonna say. We got something for that.
yeah, BUSR.com/fanatic. We both picked the over here, as Austin said, 62 points. So if you're looking to go and you feel good about it to put some money on it, you're looking for a reliable betting partner, look no further than BUSR.com/fanatic. Use that promo code SPORTS100FP. 100% free play match on all initial deposits up to $1,000. 25 free casino chips there as well. And yeah, I mean, we got promos going on right now for the NFL. We have promos going on right now for NBA. So take advantage, and you can still get some futures bets in for Heisman bets on BUSR right now. Go check out those odds, whether it's CJ Stroud. I put money on Hendon Hooker before the season started, feeling decent about that. Other guys that are in the mix, go take advantage. And our buddies over here at Last Stand Hats, check them out. LastStandHats.com/fanatic perspective, the official new sponsor of Fanatic Perspective from an apparel standpoint. Really happy to be partnered up with those folks. Use that promo code Fanatic10, 10% off at checkout on all purchases. Austin, thank you again. I will have his contact below so you guys can follow him on the socials. But Austin, thank you, brother. I appreciate you coming on, man. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we get a
Thanks.
good game.
Yes, sir. It'll be fun. Thanks for having me.
All right, y'all. Remember, Horns fans out there, horns always up. Hook 'em.